Okay, good afternoon, guys. We're going to start probably in just about 1 minute, give people a couple of additional minutes to come into the webinar. But after that, we're going to get rolling because your time's valuable and I'm whooped. I had a trial today. So as a tired, I'm sure you guys have lots of things cooking in your life. And I'm sure people can catch up as we go along because we'll do some introductions and kind of share that way. Hi, Ren. Okay, guys, let's get started. We are here to talk about how to choose a good entity type for your real estate investment properties. And I deal with this question a lot, and a lot of time investors they may go with the tried and true that they've always used. They may have it in their personal name. I don't. That's not infrequent. If that's you, don't feel embarrassed because oftentimes people begin their real estate journey through an investment that was meant for a home that they resided in. So there's lots of ways to do it. And the truth is, it's not necessarily about having a right way or a wrong way. It's about doing the way that's best for you, that's best for how you operate, and that's going to give you as much legal protection as it can. So, as far as who I am, I'm Eleanor Curry. I am a real estate attorney, but I'm also a real estate broker for the past 20 years and investor. So I understand firsthand kind of the challenges that come with how to set things up and what can be a little bit of kind of the getting into old patterns when it comes to how you continue to set things up. Because often, if we're not corrected or we don't find or see or understand a reason to change, we say what we're already doing is good enough and I'll continue to do it just the way I've always done it. And as your portfolio grows or as it changes or as your own personal risk changes, that may not be the best strategy. And you have to be open to how new ways to do things, new ways to hold property, and new ways that may be advantageous for you, either by tax purposes, either if you're thinking of crowdfunding or getting investors in some sort of way, or even if you're looking at just different ways to diversify your portfolio, take on debt without kind of stretching yourself thin on your personal credit score and your personal liability. So I understand firsthand how how important it is to balance all of these factors as you are thinking about what formation type works best for you. And often what we're doing with clients is thinking about what their strategy is, trying to set a pace that works for them, but we're also trying to be forward thinking, right? And understand not just what you have now, but what you want, in the short and long term. So, first things first, what is the first step for understanding your best formation? Now, I get a lot of people who come to me who say, I went to a webinar or I paid for a class and they told me to have a series LLC owned by a trust in Nevada or a Delaware corporation that's going to be a holding court for all these different entities. And I'm not saying that that's a good strategy or a bad strategy. I'm going to say the best strategy for you is personal to you. So someone can give you the layout for what is a amazing strategy for them, and it may be just right for them, but the question becomes if it's just right for you. And for you to answer that question, you have to understand your goals and you have to have a team behind you to get you there. Unfortunately, if you try to do it alone, or if you ask me alone, Eleanor, what's the best way for me to set up my LLC or set up a LLC or begin to buy and hold real estate? I may give you some legal perspective, but have you talked to your accountant? What is your tax liability? Is this going to help your tax bill or hurt it? Is this going to move you to a different tax bracket? Those are equally important questions. So if I tell you, a tried and true legal way to do things, but we haven't considered some of the other realities about your business and about yourself personally, yes, financially, but also how you want to live your life, then it's going to be a fail. So first and foremost, you have to understand what you want because you need to be able to communicate that. The best advice I can give you is going to be off of what I understand that you need. If I don't understand that you need anything, if I think that, you plan to flip a property and only hold it for 6 months and your real plan is to hold it for the next 20 years, Those are two different plans. And I'm going to give you probably much different advice based on those two different plans, because we're talking about short-term and long-term liability. We're talking about way different risk structures. And so you have to put yourself in the mindset of understanding what you want. What are your goals? Maybe it's to, often real estate investors come to me and they want to start by wholesaling or something that's not cash intensive. Or they may say, I do have cash saved. I have a 401k. I want to, use that to begin to invest. And this is the type of property that I like. I want to do single family houses. Or I want to do small multifamily. And often that vision changes, right? And so you're going to have some goals in mind, but you have to make sure that you are able to communicate those goals to your team, and that your team is, more than just one person, one advisor. You really want to have people around you who can understand the breadth of what you're going through. So that is your taxes. That's going to be a big consideration, because I can set you up in a plan that makes you $1 million. And if you turn around and give $400,000 of that to the IRS, you're probably not going to feel so great about the plan. And there may have been alternatives to that plan that got you in the same place for less risk, for less money, right? And so that's how you best analyze things, because that team you put together is going to help you or empower you to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and make sure you're on the same page. Sorry about the sound. I'm by downtown. So, the first step, understanding where you are, and then I would say an equally important and often forgotten step, because people get into a groove, and like I said, they can continue that way for years. And if it wins, it wins. But when it starts to fail, and when you start to experience, or when you get your first lawsuit served on you, or when you have, proper problems that just naturally come in real estate, this is a market that goes like this. This is what we can count on. The market will go up, it will go down, it will come around. And, if you have not kept enough flexibility to anticipate the natural ebbs and flows of the market and the natural changes that you can expect in your life, you may be more risk averse when you're 25 and investing in real estate, as opposed to when you're 45 and you don't want someone coming knocking on your door telling you and your family, the lifestyle you set up, you can no longer afford. So you want to continually reassess your goals. What makes sense for you? What makes sense for your family? What is your risk profile? And then what does your portfolio look like? Are you holding properties that have a lot of earned equity? Are you holding properties that are in renovation naturally hold a lot of risk? Are you too risk intensive? Should you continue to diversify by choosing some less risky properties? And so I could say I had something, a type of property I liked for most of my investment life. But the more I grow and the more I experience servicing tenants, the more I realize I've outgrown that type of entity structure, because I don't want to deal with tenants anymore, right? It doesn't feel advantageous for me. And just personally, I'm tired of it. So it's no longer a strategy. I decided to liquidate because I don't want to do that. I don't want that to be my fit. Now, if it's a larger situation where I have a property manager either on site, that strikes my fancy a lot more at this age. And with my experience, I've done that level of investing, in which was small multifamily, and I want to move to a different level. That may be commercial, that may be something different altogether. But you have to kind of see where you are and where you intend to be, and you can't be afraid to say what I was doing was good or it was bad, and I want to adjust it, and I want to get a new fit. And again, I usually work as an advocate and as a advisor to my clients, and I can only advise as much as I know. The same with the doctor. If I don't know you're sick and you have whooping cough, I can give you some medicine, but it probably won't get you where you want to go, right? It will be just a baseline assessment, but it won't go in deep, and that does not help you get to your goals. So I just had to say that, because often people come to me, they have a plan in mind, they heard someone did something, they've always done something, they want me to recreate that. And my question will always be why? Like, why does that apply to you, to your life? How are you balancing your tax responsibility? How are you balancing the liability from holding, a stack of properties that innately, like, the more you own, the more you become a target when it comes to lawsuits. So those are the natural realities of life. and of being a business owner, because if you're a real estate investor, you are a business owner. And so we have to deal with the situations that we have at hand. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about um, popular types of structures for holding real estate. And one that I didn't mention because, in some ways, as you begin to really grow a portfolio, it's a little frowned upon because you do, credit and cash are king. And so I highly recommend in whatever strategy you choose, you understand how to leverage those two things. So the first one, I guess step zero is buying things in your personal name. And while that can expose you to some liabilities, which is usually why people don't like it, it exposes your personal assets to liabilities for the property that you hold in your name. If you're just getting started, or if you have access to like an FHA or a really good loan, or you're going to buy maybe your folks' first multifamily in your personal name and live there and rent out the other properties, and then later move on to the house of your dreams or to different investment properties, it may not be a bad strategy. And I also say that to my folks who live in that like buy a fixer upper, fix it up, sell it, sell it, take the equity and do something else. So starting with property in your personal name may not be a bad look, but you do want to make sure that you understand what the requirements are with your mortgage. Yes, that big stack of closing documents can pin you to something that you don't want to be committed to. It may say exclusively for residential purpose, or it may say that you have to be the full-time resident in the property. So make sure if you're doing that, what I would call strategy zero, you're paying attention to what the details are and making sure that you can commit, or you at least understand the risk that you're putting yourself in if that's your investment strategy. So don't throw it out the window. There are scenarios where I think it works great. I wish if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have purchased my first home as a duplex or some small fourplex, and moved on to something else. And that could have been my first investment property as well. So I don't want to throw it out the window, but you do expose your personal assets, other, your bank accounts, other properties you own, to the threat of what could happen with the asset at hand. So you just want to be mindful. And like I said, make sure it's part of a strategy for you. So the tried and true, what comes to me either wanting or already having, or, continually using, is an LLC. And there's lots of reasons why that's a great option. One, it's easy, right? If you're in Texas and you want a Texas LLC, you can go, tonight, pay $300 and an $8.10 processing fee, and probably by the end of the week have an LLC in your name. So it's very easy to use, easy to form, and it carries through over to your personal tax returns if you have it listed as a partnership. And you can also file it if you have a multi-member LLC. You can do its own tax return. So that flexibility in tax filing is a great advantage. And I have to mention, because some people ask this of me, if you have enough money and you have enough stability where you can give yourself a salary, then either with an LLC option or a corporation, you can opt into an S Corp status. And that is just an IRS designation. You complete a form at the end of the tax year where you plan to make that change into S Corp status, but it allows you to deduct any salary that you pay to yourself from the business. So it means instead of, carrying over any profits for that LLC to your personal returns, you can deduct what you pay yourself. Obviously, as if you're an employee, you would pay payroll taxes on yourself as an employee, again, an expense of that business. And then you reduce the amount that carries through to you as an owner of that business. So I just like to mention it because often people don't know they can opt into that S Corp status. They don't have to just form a corporation, or it's not exclusively for corporations to achieve that type of status. Beyond any other reason, the first and foremost reason people usually choose an LLC is the liability protection. Again, you're insulating the assets of that business from your personal assets, and you're pretty much saying to the world, the most that I can use, that I can lose in this business is what I've either put in this business or what this business has grown. So if I buy a property, somebody slips and falls, they can sue my LLC. They may be able to reach the property, but they can't come and reach my personal assets, my personal bank account. And for many people, that's a first and foremost concern when they're going into the real estate investing world. So that liability protection is really good. Be careful. Although LLCs don't have a lot of formalities imposed by the state, you can risk losing that LLC status or by somebody, what we call piercing the corporate veil, if you don't maintain the separate nature of the LLC. So the LLC is meant to have its own bank account. You're supposed to keep track of how the funds are spent. You're not supposed to use that LLC bank account to pay your own personal mortgage. And so that separation is important. And if you ever are sued, and the LLC doesn't have anything, people are naturally going to try to find a way to get to you personally if you do have something. So just be mindful that keeping those checks and balances in place are important. Another thing that's becoming more popular is that LLCs can issue bonds. So LLCs allow you to increase funding by either getting equity partners, people who are also members of that LLC and who can participate in either the profit or the loss of the LLC, or from debt investors. And those are people who usually are a little more risk averse. They want some steady flow and some guarantees that they're going to get paid. They may tie their bond to individual properties that you buy or individual investment strategies. But bondholders, is popular. And I think when you get into higher level investing, you find a lot of people who don't necessarily want to hang their hat on one property, giving them, a net rate of return of 10%, but they may want to hang their hat on your skill set as an investor, your prior returns, and how you have a history of doing well. So they may want to put their bet on you, in which case it gives you that flexibility where you can continue to target properties that you like, but you have that kind of surge of cash to assist you in achieving those goals. So issuing bonds is a big deal. It's a little bit, most people don't know that's an option, but when you're looking at debt financing, it may be a great one for you. Another great option, and I'm increasingly liking this option because it has all the benefits of an LLC, and that's a series LLC, but it has all the benefits of an LLC. But instead of what often people do, and they come to me and they've lumped 10 different properties into one LLC. And what that does is if someone sues LLC over property 1, they can reach property 8 because it's in that LLC. So whatever you put in the LLC, all of those assets are exposed to any kind of judgment, to any kind of debt service. And so that exposure, sometimes it's just unwise, because what we do know, like I mentioned, is the bigger you get, the more successful you are, the more assured you can be that someone will try to sue you. That may be ex-tenant, that may be some sort of default, and now they have a plethora of avenues to get a judgment collected on. And, that's music to people's ears, right? Because often the deterrent from suing someone is, can you really collect? Do you know where their assets are? Do you know where their bank account is? Can we file a subpoena to get those assets to you? Or can we file a judgment lien so there's a lien on those properties? So what a series LLC does is you set up a parent LLC, and you can consider it much like a parent company. You set up a parent LLC, and this parent LLC can then have subsidiary or children LLCs. And there are different names for it. But what's important to remember is once you set up the parent LLC, and it does require some special verbiage with the Secretary of State, you can't just decide yourself that you have a series LLC. You have to both title it as a series LLC, and there needs to be some verbiage in your public filing of formation that documents how that LLC will work. So just be mindful of that, because lots of people say, oh, that sounds great, I want it, but you already have an LLC in place. So what it does is it allows you to set up these sub-series of your LLC, each one separate, and each one kind of insulated from what happens to the next one. So if you have Eleanor Curry Series LLC, And then I have Series A, Series B, Series C. Each of them are separate LLCs. I do not have to go to the Secretary of State with each filing. I file a DBA for each separate sub-series, and I still get that insulation for each subsidiary of the series. So it allows you to put things in a place, and it's just solo. It's insulated, so I can't come and say, "Well, you have a Series LLC. I want to sue you. I was injured by Series F, and I want to sue and get property that you own in Series A." So similar, if you do have an LLC, kind of think of it the same way of how you segregate the assets of the LLC and the assets, your personal assets. The Series LLC allows you to do so without having to file a separate LLC with each property and without having some of the rigmarole that comes along with having separate LLCs. How are you filing your taxes? Are you a partner? Are you just a manager? Are you a member? Right? And you still get the flexibility for each subseries to choose the structure. So it doesn't mean you have to repeat Series A to Series B. So you may have 3 owners in Series A. You may own Series B all by yourself. You may own Series C with just you as an owner, but you have a debt investor. So you can choose and make it different for each LLC, that each subsidiary that you file, even though it's still under one Series LLC. So that being said, you get still all the tax, the savings, the protection that you get with an LLC, but you kind of have some ease of use when it comes to putting it into action. And this is especially important for investors who intend to rapidly expand their portfolio. So if you're going to be buying 5 or 10 properties, it doesn't make sense to start a separate LLC for each property. It's confusing for you. It's a confusing tax process. And it's even confusing keeping up with different EINs and keeping up with different filings, franchise tax filings, for instance. So I like that a lot. And again, the parent gets to build credit, because in your LLC or in your Series LLC, you have to keep a mind towards how are you removing yourself personally from the operation of that business. Again, I'm always going to treat you as a real estate investor, as a business, and how are you keeping that business running smoothly. And last but not least, our trust. And trust have become super popular. I see all the time, oh, transfer all your debt to your trust, or you can set up a irrevocable trust and still stay in control. I would encourage you, if you're thinking about trust, to talk to an attorney who can guide you through the process and the different types of trust and what can be important. What most people like across the board about trust is the privacy. Unlike a Series LLC, unlike an LLC, it is not a public filing. So no matter who's in that trust, I can't come by boop, 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 and understand the internal workings of that trust, right? Because all of those documents are private. You can't, even it is even difficult to get through a court order unless you have good cause. So the privacy is a really good reason, the anonymity that people have. That if you are already a wealthy person, or you have assets that you want to make sure are protected, keeping those assets in a trust kind of it makes it so people can't see clear through to everything that you have, which is a lot easier in Series LLCs and LLCs. They are a great way to begin to establish a legacy plan. Hopefully, however you think about your properties, it's not just right now, gimme, right? You hopefully have a plan for how it can either expand, help you in your life. And if you have an irrevocable trust, if you have a revocable trust, it's for you. You're the first beneficiary. So hopefully you either have a plan on how it can benefit you. Maybe it's your retirement plan. Maybe it's making sure if anything happens to you, you're always taken care of. But also your legacy, what happens after you. Maybe that's your kids or your family, or it could even be your community. Certainly people choose sometimes, but it allows you to put together a plan of how you want everything to happen and also avoid probate. And I can't stress enough how expensive, confusing, time-consuming probate is. So putting that legacy plan together in a trust, yes, has its advantage for anonymity and asset protection. And if you choose the right type of trust, even making sure that those properties can never be collected in a judgment or any, a divorce or anything against you, right? If set up properly, and if it is the right type of strategy for your situation, all of that can happen within a trust. But you have to really understand what you're locking yourself into if you're getting anything other than a living trust or a revocable trust. And again, it allows you to put instructions in place. So the first beneficiary is you. You can say, if something happens to me, even temporarily, I want, the trust to provide for my living expenses, here's the plan for how it's going to manage the businesses that I own, or how the operations of my real estate portfolio will continue. So it allows you to put plans in place, not just for now, but far into the future. So trusts are a great option, but some of the hype I hear about trust can occur, but it's just not always a fit for everyone. So you want to make sure and understand where you stand and what works for you. And last but not least, you can have a combination of these legal structures. And often, the more you grow, the more you have a portfolio to speak of, you probably want this combo option. You may decide some properties are long-term holds, and you do move them into a revocable trust or irrevocable trust that can't be touched, that is off limits for judgments or marriage or creditors. You may choose that option, but you may have things that are more short-term holds or buy and flips that are in an LLC, and you have an LLC just designated for that type of property, that type of investment. So don't be afraid to try to get creative. But again, that creativity shouldn't be based off of what someone said down the street around the way, what works for them. Here's how you save $1 million on your taxes. It could save somebody $1 million, and that could be absolutely true. And it could save you $0, or it could cost you money. So just make sure that you begin to think about that, and how does this fit and behoove me? How does it benefit me and my strategy? Instead of someone told me this is a good idea and I'm going to put it in place, because I get that a lot. And often I'm charging people with explaining, how does it help you? I can set, if you want to set up a LLC in Nevada because you went to a seminar and they said Nevada's a great place. Well, have you compared it to where you live? And if you haven't, do you understand, if you set up a Nevada LLC or a Delaware corporation, that you probably still have to file something to do business in the state that you're going to operate property in? And that filing can be just as expensive as actually filing the LLC in that state. So a foreign entity registration can still cost you the same $300. And you may be subjected to state income taxes as well as the federal taxes that we can't avoid. Certain states do have taxes. Certain states don't, like Texas and Florida. We don't have state taxes up to a certain point in businesses. That's $1.1 million. So you get kind of a big tax wave in certain states, but that structure is going to be dependent on you and what the cash flow or what the capital structure is for each of those properties. So again, get involved. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what your team really should be there for. And you should be regularly following up with that team to see what works best. Okay, well, that was the dive into the different types. I always like to tell people, we do a breadth of services for real estate investors here at the Curry Law Firm, transactional services. Always, I just left trial today. I did mention that. So we are litigators. So sometimes things can't be resolved with a demand letter and a nice call. So sometimes we're doing that. We certainly put trust and legacy plans in place for businesses and entrepreneurs. And then, of course, we do title work. And like I said, the whole benefit to that is that we understand the challenges. Sometimes people want to do double closes, or sometimes they want some additional help researching properties, or maybe they're a note buyer. They'd like to go down to the county auction. We have some unique insight on those things. So last but not least, I wanted to share how you can reach if you want to set something up. And oh, look, I put our phone number wrong, but it is 713-574-2070. And you can always reach out to me directly at ecurry@stlfirm.com. But I wanted to make sure that I hope I didn't speed through things too fast, but I did want to make sure I left time for people to ask questions, because lots of times people have something personal to them that they want insight about, and I wanted to give space for that. And if I can find a way where you can just talk, I'm happy to do so. But I'm trying out this webinar, so I may not. Oh wait, no. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm turning you guys' microphone on, and if you want to ask a question, feel free to do it there. You still would have to unmute yourself if you do want to ask a question. No questions? Okay, guys. Well, I so appreciate your attendance. I am happy to help at ask any questions that you have. So if you want to just reach out to me one-on-one, I'm happy to address and answer any questions you have. But until then, I'll see you guys soon. You're welcome. I'm happy you got some good information from it. Thanks, guys.